Sun Tuyuan reporting there for us. Now for analysis on Kerry's visit, let's turn to Saleem Ali. He is a blue and gold distinguished Professor of Energy and the Environment at the University of Delaware. Thanks so much for your time. Now, what is the ultimate goal here, and is there any chance of reaching it given the rivalry between the two countries?
Well, the ultimate goal on the American side is to have China make some greater commitments which go beyond its classification as a developing country. That has been a cause for concern on the U.S. side, that the economic development of China has reached a point where its obligations should be more than that of a developing country. On the Chinese side, there is a hope that this will lead to a greater level of trust that can de-escalate also some of the other tensions on the economic front. So China wants to couple this with some of the other concerns they have in terms of U.S. austerity towards Chinese economic policies.
So can you tell us a little bit more about how the standards vary between China and the US in terms of what those climate goals should be? We know the US is pushing back on China about its use of coal, but of course the US has recently signed a huge oil drilling project in Alaska. Is this a double standard, or is it not, given that the two countries are seen in very different classifications?
Yes, I think on the U.S. side, there's a feeling that coal specifically, and coal is separate from oil and gas because coal is being used largely for the power sector. So the transition away from coal for power is what the U.S. is hoping, whereas the oil and gas to a large degree is either being used for mobile transport or for direct heating in the case of gas, which makes it very efficient in certain kinds of uses. So I think that's one part of it. There is also the concern around Chinese control over critical metals needed for the green energy transition. And that might be behind the scenes also something that could be discussed in terms of what assurance there may be. The U.S. has been trying to de-risk its strategy with reference to those minerals. And so that would be another interesting way in which there might be some opportunities for diplomacy.
So when we talk about China and the US being the two biggest global greenhouse gas emitters, what does that mean in terms of what we're seeing in our environment, our climate today? How much of that contributes to global warming and potentially to the kind of heat waves that we're seeing this summer?
Yes, well, fossil fuels are, of course, the major contributor in this regard. There is concern also with methane, particularly, which is, of course, the main constituent of natural gas. And there's a lot of concern about leakage of methane from existing infrastructure causing a large degree of impact with reference to warming. And so one of the goals of these meetings is that perhaps the US and China can agree upon some strategy on methane control and mitigation. And all of these factors are going to play a role in the long term in terms of how we're able to change the climate trajectory. There may also be talk of adaptation, because there is a feeling that we may have crossed a tipping point in terms of climate change, and now we have to focus on adaptation. And that means investment in infrastructure to deal with these problems in the most vulnerable countries. There may be a linkage with China's Belt and Road Initiative, which could help with adaptation in developing countries. So I think all of this should be on the agenda.
Do you think the climate goals of both countries are sufficient at this point? And what would be or is the most urgent action that needs to be taken?
Well, China has made a commitment to reduce coal usage after 2026. The phase-out plan is much more drawn out than perhaps some countries would like. And so there is a concern that that should be escalated. On the positive side, John Kerry has himself said that China's transition on renewables has been remarkable, both on the technological development as well as its own transition. So that could be further accelerated, we would hope. And then on the batteries and storage sector side, China has been a global leader on battery storage technologies, and so that could be an important area for electric vehicles transition. And that both countries are trying to make strong targets on EV transition, and that'll be an important part of also the conversation.